A toast to my beautiful fiancée, Victoria, who helped me clear all the unnecessary baggage from my life, says Liam, raising his champagne glass in the middle of the Sterling ballroom. To a perfect future. As the guests applaud, the heavy sound of the mansion's doorbell echoes, silencing the music. Liam's mother frowns, annoyed by the interruption, but Liam just smiles, unaware of what fate has in store. What they don't know is that on the other side of that door stood the secret he tried to bury. And that secret now had 4 identical little faces. But before we see how Elena makes this family pay for everything they did, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now hit that subscribe button and let's dive into the full story. I don't belong here, Elena Martinez whispered to herself as she stood at the iron gates of the Carson mansion. The September sun made the white stone structure glow against the clear Boston sky. The security guard looked up from his booth. Name? Elena Martinez. I'm the new nanny for Tommy Carson. The man checked his list and nodded. The large gates swung open without a sound. Elena gripped her single suitcase tighter and walked up the curved driveway, her heart pounding against her ribs. A woman in her 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair opened the door before Elena could knock. You're 3 minutes early, the woman said, checking her watch. I'm Victoria Carson. Follow me. Elena followed Mrs. Carson through the entrance hall, where a crystal chandelier hung from a ceiling that seemed as high as the sky. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors that shined like mirrors. The Carson household operates on precision and order, Mrs. Carson said, leading Elena up a grand staircase. Tommy's schedule is posted in his room and must be followed exactly. Breakfast at 7, lunch at 12, dinner at 6, bed by 8. Educational activities in the morning, physical activities in the afternoon. 30 minutes of television maximum. Elena nodded, trying to remember everything. Yes, Mrs. Carson. Your quarters are here. Mrs. Carson opened a door to reveal a small but elegant bedroom with a private bathroom. Staff meals are taken in the kitchen. You have Sundays off unless we're traveling. Your primary responsibility is Tommy, but you may be asked to help with other household matters. I understand. Thank you for this opportunity. Mrs. Carson's eyes narrowed slightly. Richard insisted on hiring an American student rather than someone with more experience. I hope you prove his judgment correct. Before Elena could respond, Mrs. Carson was already walking down the hallway. Tommy's room is this way. He's rather shy. They stopped at a blue door with a wooden T hanging on it. Mrs. Carson knocked once and entered. A small boy with sandy brown hair sat on the floor, carefully building something with blocks. He didn't look up. Tommy, this is Elena, your new nanny. I expect you to show her respect. The boy nodded without looking up. I'll leave you to get acquainted. Dinner is in 1 hour. Mrs. Carson left, closing the door behind her. Elena knelt down beside Tommy. Hi there. What are you building? Tommy shrugged. A castle. It looks great. Can I help? Tommy finally looked up, his blue eyes serious. Do you know how to build a proper drawbridge? Elena smiled. I think we can figure it out together. By dinner time, Elena had helped Tommy build not just a drawbridge but also a moat and several towers. The boy had slowly opened up, explaining his design with growing excitement. Dinner was a formal affair in a dining room that could fit 20 people. Mr. Richard Carson sat at the head of the table, checking emails on his phone between bites. Mrs. Carson sat opposite him, her posture perfect. Tommy sat quietly, eating small bites of chicken. So, Miss Martinez, Mr. Carson said, setting down his phone. Tommy seems to like you already. Usually takes him days to warm up to new people. We had fun building a castle, sir, Elena replied. Please, call me Richard. Sir makes me feel like my father. His smile was warm, unlike his wife's cold stare. Tommy needs to focus on his reading, not just playing, Mrs. Carson cut in. His tutor says he's falling behind. Victoria, he's 6, Richard sighed. There's plenty of time for reading. The Phillipses' son started reading at 4, Victoria replied. Elena looked at Tommy, who was staring at his plate, shoulders slumped. I actually have some fun reading games we could try, Elena offered. I used to help my little cousins in Miami with their reading. Tommy looked up with interest. See? Problem solved, Richard said with a satisfied nod. Later that night, after helping Tommy with his bath and bedtime routine, Elena read him a story about dragons and knights. She changed her voice for each character, making Tommy giggle. Can we read another one? Tommy asked when she finished. Elena checked her watch. It was 15 minutes past his scheduled bedtime. Just a short one, she decided, reaching for another book. Halfway through the story, the bedroom door opened. Elena expected to see Mrs. Carson ready to scold her for breaking the schedule. Instead, a tall man with sandy brown hair like Tommy's stood in the doorway. James, Tommy squealed, jumping out of bed to hug the man. Hey, buddy, the man said, lifting Tommy up easily. Aren't you supposed to be asleep? Elena was reading me stories. She does funny voices. The man looked at Elena with curious green eyes. You must be the new nanny. I'm James Carson, Tommy's big brother. Elena stood up, suddenly conscious of her simple jeans and t-shirt. Elena Martinez. Nice to meet you. James set Tommy back in bed. I just got back from New York. Go to sleep now and I'll tell you about the big buildings tomorrow. After Tommy settled down, Elena and James left the room together. Thank you for getting him to smile, James said quietly in the hallway. He's been pretty quiet since his last nanny left. He's a great kid, Elena replied. Very creative. James nodded. Mother can be strict with his schedule. It's good for him to have some fun, too. Elena headed toward her room. I should let you get back to your family. Actually, I missed dinner and was heading to the kitchen. Would you like something? You must still be adjusting to the house. Elena hesitated. I don't want to bother you. It's no bother. I hate eating alone. 20 minutes later, they sat at the kitchen island with sandwiches and milk. The house staff had gone home, leaving the large kitchen quiet and peaceful. So, nursing student? James asked. Yes, at Boston College. This job helps pay for tuition. That's impressive. Why nursing? Elena took a sip of milk. My mom got sick when I was 15. The nurses who took care of her were amazing, not just with medical stuff, but making her feel human when she was scared. I want to do that for others. James nodded. That's much better than my reason for joining the family business, which was basically, James, you're joining the family business. They both laughed, then quickly glanced toward the door. Your mother doesn't seem to like laughter after 9 o'clock, Elena said. Mother doesn't like much of anything that isn't scheduled, James replied with a half smile. Don't take her criticism personally. She was the same with all of Tommy's nannies. How many have there been? 4 in the last year. Tommy gets attached, then they leave. It's been hard on him. Elena thought about the shy boy who'd opened up while building castles. I don't plan on leaving. I need this job through graduation at least. That would be good for him, James said, checking his watch. I should let you get some rest. Early mornings here. Elena stood, gathering their plates. Thanks for the sandwich. And the company. The pleasure was mine, Elena, James said, his green eyes lingering on hers for a moment longer than necessary. I have a feeling you might actually survive the Carson household. 2 weeks later, Elena had settled into a routine with Tommy. Mornings were filled with learning games that made reading fun. Afternoons included trips to the Boston Public Garden or science experiments in the kitchen. Mrs. Carson frequently criticized Elena's casual approach to Tommy's education, but Mr. Carson defended her when he saw Tommy's progress. One evening, Elena was making hot chocolate in the kitchen after putting Tommy to bed when James walked in, loosening his tie. Long day? She asked, reaching for another mug. Endless meetings, he sighed, sitting at the island. How's my brother doing with his reading? Elena poured hot chocolate into both mugs. Much better. We turned it into detective games. He has to read clues to find hidden toys. James smiled. That's genius. You're different from his other nannies. How so? You see him, not just the job or the paycheck. Elena handed him the mug. He's a great kid. Smart, too. They fell into an easy conversation about their days. James described a building project his father wanted him to lead. Elena talked about Tommy's latest art project. You should be proud, Elena said. Tommy talks about you all the time. He thinks his big brother is some kind of superhero. James looked down at his mug. I'm no hero, just trying not to disappoint anyone. That sounds familiar, Elena said softly. My parents worked 3 jobs each to get me to college. Failure isn't an option. James met her eyes. Looks like we understand each other, Elena Martinez. The kitchen felt suddenly smaller, the air between them charged with something neither was ready to name. Elena stood up, breaking the moment. I should get some sleep. Tommy wants to build a volcano tomorrow. James walked her to the kitchen door. I have meetings downtown all week, but maybe we could talk again? These late-night conversations are becoming the best part of coming home. Elena felt her cheeks warm. I'd like that. As autumn leaves began to cover Boston Common, these kitchen conversations became a regular part of Elena's nights. Each time they shared more of themselves. James confessing his doubts about the family business, Elena describing her parents' journey from Cuba and their dreams for her future. Neither of them noticed Victoria Carson watching from the hallway one night, her eyes narrowing as her son laughed at something the nanny said. Victoria Carson stepped away from the kitchen doorway before James or Elena could notice her watching them. Their laughter echoed down the hallway as she retreated to her bedroom, her mind already forming plans. The next morning, Elena took Tommy to the Boston Public Garden. The 6-year-old ran ahead toward the duck pond, his blue jacket bright against the fall colors. Not too far, Tommy, Elena called, hurrying to keep up. He's quite energetic today, a familiar voice said behind her. Elena turned to find James standing there in casual clothes instead of his usual business suit. James, what are you doing here? He smiled. I had a meeting canceled. Thought I'd enjoy the fresh air before heading back to the office. He lowered his voice. And maybe I hope to run into you too. Tommy ran back to them, excited. James, did you come to see the ducks with us? Sure did, buddy, James replied, ruffling his brother's hair. They spent an hour walking through the garden, Tommy running between them. When Tommy became distracted by a street performer, James leaned closer to Elena. There's a small cafe in Cambridge called Hidden Corner. Very quiet, away from anyone who might know the Carson family. Would you meet me there tomorrow evening, around 7? Elena hesitated. I don't know if that's a good idea. Just as friends, James said quickly. I enjoy talking with you. They both knew it was more than that, but neither said it aloud. Okay, Elena finally agreed. Tomorrow at 7. The next evening, Elena told Mrs. Carson she was meeting a study group from nursing school. Mrs. Carson barely looked up from her planner. Hidden Corner Cafe was tucked between 2 larger buildings on a quiet Cambridge street. James was already seated in the back when Elena arrived, nervously smoothing her dress. You came? He said, standing to greet her. I came, she replied, sitting across from him. They ordered coffee and talked for hours. James described growing up with enormous expectations. Elena shared stories about her parents' small apartment in Miami, filled with love but little money. They worked so hard to give me opportunities, Elena said. My dad still drives a taxi 7 days a week so I can be here. James reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You're amazing, Elena. The way you care for Tommy, your dedication to nursing school. I've never met anyone like you. When he walked her to her car, the night air was cool around them. James stepped closer. I've wanted to do this since that first night in the kitchen, he whispered, and leaned down to kiss her. Elena knew she should pull away. He was her employer's son. She needed this job. But when his lips touched hers, all those thoughts disappeared. Their secret relationship developed over weeks and then months. They met at Hidden Corner, at small restaurants in parts of Boston where the Carson social circle never ventured, and sometimes at James's downtown apartment when he could escape family obligations. One Saturday in late October, James took her sailing on Boston Harbor. The water sparkled under bright sunshine as they moved away from the shore. "I've never been on a boat before," Elena admitted, holding tight to the railing. James stood behind her, his arms around her waist. "You're safe with me." They dropped anchor in a quiet spot, and Elena unpacked the lunch she had prepared, her mother's Cuban sandwich recipe. "This is incredible," James said between bites. "So much better than the fancy restaurant food Mother always insists on." "My mom would be happy to hear that," Elena smiled. "She taught me to cook when I was 10. James took her hand. "I want to meet your parents someday." Elena looked away. "They might not understand this, U.S. "Because I'm rich." "Because I'm the help, James. Your mother would never accept me as more than Tommy's nanny." "My mother doesn't control my life," James insisted, though his eyes showed uncertainty. 2 weeks later, Elena waited at Hidden Corner for more than an hour, but James never appeared. He didn't answer his phone. She returned to the mansion, worried and hurt. The next day, she was helping Tommy with homework when James finally called. "I'm so sorry," he said. "There was a family obligation I couldn't get out of." "You could have called," Elena replied, keeping her voice low so Tommy wouldn't hear. "I know, it was complicated. Can I see you tonight? I'll explain everything." That night in his apartment, James was unusually quiet. "What was this family obligation?" Elena finally asked. James sighed. "A dinner with my father's business partners. The Taylors. You've mentioned them before." "Yes, their daughter Megan was there." He paused. "Mother has always wanted us to connect." Elena felt cold suddenly. "Are you seeing her too?" "No, it's not like that. It's just business. The families have known each other forever." James pulled her close. "You're the only one I care about, Elena. Please believe me." She wanted to believe him, and when he kissed her, she pushed her doubts away. December arrived, bringing snow to Boston. One afternoon, while Tommy worked on a school project about current events, Elena helped him search through newspaper clippings. A headline in the society section caught her eye: "Carson Taylor engagement announced." Below was a photo of James standing beside a tall blonde woman, both smiling at the camera. The caption read, "James Carson, heir to Carson Developments, and Megan Taylor, daughter of Taylor Investments CEO, announce their engagement." The power couple plans a summer wedding. Elena felt the room spin. She excused herself and locked the bathroom door before tears could fall. That night, she confronted James in his car outside the mansion. "When were you going to tell me about your engagement?" she demanded, throwing the newspaper onto his lap. James closed his eyes. "Elena, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "That our entire relationship has been a lie." "No," he grabbed her hands. "The engagement is the lie. It's a business arrangement between families. It was planned years ago." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "So I'm what? Your secret girlfriend until you marry her?" "I've been trying to find a way out of it," James insisted. "I need to secure my position in the company first. Father is retiring next year. Once I'm in charge, I can break things off with Megan." "How convenient for you." "Elena, please." His green eyes filled with tears. "I love you. Only you. This thing with Megan is just business." She wanted to walk away, to protect her heart. But when he held her, whispering promises, she found herself believing him again. Their relationship continued, more cautious now. Elena felt uncomfortable knowing about Megan, but James seemed more attentive than ever. He called daily, sent flowers to her apartment on her days off, and made plans for their future. "Just a few more months," he would say. "Then we won't need to hide anymore." 2 weeks before Christmas, the Carson family began preparing for their annual holiday gala. The mansion transformed with decorations and staff worked overtime to prepare. During this busy time, Elena began feeling strangely tired. Her uniform felt tighter. When she missed her monthly cycle, worry crept in. On her day off, Elena bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy far from the Carson neighborhood. In her tiny bathroom, she watched with shaking hands as 2 pink lines appeared. "Oh God," she whispered, sitting on the edge of the bathtub. The next day at the mansion, Elena asked to speak with James privately. They met in the library while the staff decorated the main hall for the gala. "What's wrong?" James asked, noticing her pale face. "You look sick." Elena took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." James froze, his face draining of color. "Are you sure?" She nodded, unable to speak. "How? We were careful." "Apparently not careful enough," Elena replied. James paced the room, running his hands through his hair. "This changes everything. I need time to think, to figure out how to handle this." "Handle this?" Elena repeated. "This is a baby, James." "Our baby. I know. He stopped pacing and took her hands. "I'm not saying I won't support you. I just need time to figure out the right way to do this. The company transition, the engagement." "So I'm still coming after Megan and your family business," Elena said bitterly. "No, that's not what I meant." James pulled her into his arms. "We'll figure this out. I promise. Just give me until after the gala. Let me handle things the right way." Neither of them noticed Megan Taylor standing in the doorway, her cold blue eyes taking in the scene before she silently stepped away. That night, Elena lay awake in her small bedroom, hands resting on her stomach. She wanted to believe James would choose her and their baby over family expectations. She had to believe it. Her phone buzzed with a message from James. "Meet me in my father's office in 30 minutes. I'm going to end things with Megan tonight." Hope filled Elena's heart as she got up to change her clothes. Maybe everything would work out after all. Elena quickly changed into a simple blue dress, her heart racing as she made her way to Richard Carson's office. The mansion was busy with staff preparing for the gala, hanging last decorations and arranging flowers in crystal vases. Music played softly from the main ballroom where guests would soon arrive. The hallway to Richard's office was quiet, away from the activity. Elena paused outside the heavy wooden door, smoothing her dress and touching her stomach gently. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "Everything changes tonight." She opened the door, expecting to find James waiting for her. Instead, Victoria Carson stood behind Richard's desk, her face cold and hard. 2 large security guards stood by the door. "Mrs. Carson," Elena said, confused. "I was supposed to meet James here." "James will not be joining us," Victoria said. "Close the door." Elena did as she was told, a feeling of dread growing inside her. Victoria picked up a piece of paper from the desk. "My son has informed me of your condition and your attempt to trap him with this pregnancy." "What? No, that's not—" "Do not interrupt me," Victoria snapped. "The Carson family has dealt with gold diggers before. You are neither the first nor the most clever." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. "I never asked James for money. I love him." Victoria laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Love? You are the help, Miss Martinez, a temporary employee we invited into our home out of charity." She slid an envelope across the desk. "This contains your final payment, minus the cost of the uniform you are wearing. You are fired, effective immediately. There will be no references. Elena could barely breathe. "Please, just let me talk to James. There's been a misunderstanding." "James is the one who told us about your scheme," Victoria said coldly. "He has more important concerns than a nanny who tried to trap him. The Taylor-Carson merger has been planned for years." One of the security guards stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to escort you out now." "My things," Elena protested. "I need to pack." "Already taken care of," Victoria said. She nodded to the second guard, who held up Elena's backpack. "Your belongings have been packed for you." Elena took the backpack with shaking hands. "Can I at least say goodbye to Tommy?" "Absolutely not. You will leave this house immediately and have no further contact with any member of this family." The guards moved to either side of Elena, clearly waiting to escort her out. Victoria turned her back, dismissing Elena completely. "Mrs. Carson," Elena tried one more time, "I'm pregnant with your grandchild." "Please." Victoria turned, her eyes flashing with anger. "If you attempt to contact any Carson or make any claims about this alleged pregnancy, our lawyers will destroy whatever reputation you have left. Now get out of my house." The guards gripped Elena's arms, leading her toward the front door. Guests were arriving for the gala, handing keys to valets and entering the brightly lit mansion. No one paid attention to the crying nanny being escorted out the side entrance. Snow had begun falling heavily, covering Boston in white. Elena had no coat. It was still hanging in her bedroom closet. The security guards pushed her outside into the cold, closing the door behind her. That's when she saw him. James stood at the top of the grand staircase, watching through a window. Their eyes met for a moment. Elena waited for him to run down to stop this nightmare. But he just stood there, his face expressionless before turning away. Elena stood in the snow, her thin dress offering no protection against the December cold. Tears froze on her cheeks as she realized the truth. James had betrayed her. He had told his mother about the baby and let her be thrown out like garbage. With nowhere else to go, Elena walked to the nearest bus station, shivering the entire way. Inside, she counted her savings, $342, almost everything she had, just enough for a one-way ticket to Chicago, where her college roommate Tanya lived. "One ticket to Chicago, please," she told the clerk, her voice breaking. "That's an overnight trip, leaves in 20 minutes, the man said, barely looking up. $275. Elena handed over most of her money, leaving her with barely enough for food. She sat in the waiting area, holding her backpack close, trying not to cry in public. On the overnight bus, Elena found a seat in the back. As the bus pulled away from Boston, she took out her phone. She had 12 missed calls from James. As she watched, a new message appeared. "Elena, where are you? Please let me explain." Elena started typing. "How could you tell your mother I was trying to trap you? How could you watch them throw me out into the snow?" She deleted it all without sending. Instead, she blocked his number and turned off her phone. The journey to Chicago was long and uncomfortable. Elena barely slept, her mind replaying every moment with James, wondering how she could have been so blind. By morning, the bus was pulling into Chicago's station. Tanya was waiting, her face worried. She ran to Elena and wrapped her in a hug. "Oh my God, Elena! You look terrible. What happened?" Elena broke down completely then, sobbing in her friend's arms. "Everything went wrong, Tanya. Everything." At Tanya's small apartment, Elena told her the whole story. The secret relationship, the pregnancy, and the betrayal. "That rich bastard," Tanya said, anger clear in her voice. "I'll kill him." "I just need a place to stay for a few days," Elena said, "until I figure out what to do next." "You can stay as long as you need," Tanya insisted. "My couch is your couch." 2 days later, Elena found a free clinic for her first prenatal appointment. She sat nervously in the waiting room filling out forms with her medical history. The doctor was a kind woman named Dr. Roberts who examined Elena carefully. Everything seemed normal until the ultrasound. Dr. Roberts said, moving the wand over Elena's stomach. Is something wrong? Elena asked, suddenly afraid. Not wrong, exactly. The doctor adjusted some settings on the machine. But I'm seeing something unusual. I'd like to refer you to a specialist, Dr. Jenkins. She works with high-risk pregnancies. High risk? What does that mean? Dr. Roberts turned the screen toward Elena. See these 4 separate circles? I believe you're carrying multiples, more than twins. Elena stared at the screen. More than twins? Like triplets? Based on what I'm seeing, I suspect quadruplets. 4 babies. The room seemed to spin around Elena. 4 babies? That's impossible. It's rare, but it happens. Dr. Jenkins will confirm and discuss your options. 3 days later, Dr. Sarah Jenkins confirmed the diagnosis. Elena was carrying identical quadruplets. 4 babies from 1 egg that had split multiple times. This is a very high-risk pregnancy, Dr. Jenkins explained. You'll need specialized care throughout. Do you have health insurance? Elena shook her head. I lost my job. I have no insurance, no home, almost no money. Dr. Jenkins frowned. What about the father? He's not in the picture, Elena said firmly. Back at Tanya's apartment, Elena sat on the couch, her head in her hands. 4 babies, Tanya. How am I supposed to take care of 4 babies by myself? Tanya sat beside her. You're not by yourself. I'm here. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment and work 60 hours a week, Elena said. I can't ask you to support 4 babies. There's a place my cousin went when she needed help, Tanya said after a moment. It's called New Beginnings. It's a shelter for women, but they have a special program for pregnant women and new mothers. The next morning, they visited New Beginnings. The building was old but clean, with a sign reading, Women Helping Women Since 1985. Inside, Elena met with the director, Martha Wilson, a tall black woman with gray hair and direct eyes. So, Martha said after hearing Elena's situation, 4 babies, no job, no home, no support from the father. That about cover it? Elena nodded, feeling small. Well, honey, you came to the right place. We've got a program for single mothers. You can stay here while you're pregnant, and we'll help you find more permanent housing before your delivery. But we have rules and expectations. What kind of rules? Elena asked. You work or you study. No drugs, no alcohol, no men in the residence. You attend parenting classes and life skills workshops. This is not a free ride. It's a hand up to help you become independent. I was in nursing school before. Everything happened. Martha nodded approvingly. Good. Education is your way forward. We can help you apply for emergency assistance programs, medical coverage, housing support. But you'll need to do the work. I will, Elena promised. I'll do whatever it takes. That night, Elena moved into a small room at New Beginnings. The bed was narrow but comfortable. There was a dresser for her few belongings and a small window overlooking the street. It wasn't much, but it was safe. As she unpacked her backpack, Elena found a small teddy bear she had bought for Tommy weeks ago, planning to give it to him for Christmas. She hugged it close, letting herself cry one more time for everything she had lost. Then she placed her hands on her stomach, where 4 tiny lives were growing. We're going to be okay, she whispered to them. I don't know how yet, but we will be. Outside her window, Chicago's lights glowed in the darkness, a city of strangers that would somehow need to become home. Elena woke up early in her small room at New Beginnings. The morning light through the thin curtains made shadows on the wall. For a moment, she forgot where she was, expecting to hear Tommy calling for her or the sounds of the Carson Mansion kitchen. Then, reality came back. Chicago, the shelter, 4 babies growing inside her. Her first week at New Beginnings followed a strict schedule. Martha Wilson made sure every resident had a plan for the day. Appointments, job searches, classes. Elena's plan focused on her health and finding medical care for her high-risk pregnancy. "Good morning," Martha said when Elena entered the common room. "Dr. Jenkins's office called. They can see you today at 10. Elena nodded gratefully. Dr. Jenkins had agreed to take her case through a program for women without insurance. "Also," Martha continued, "this came for you." She handed Elena a packet of papers. "Application forms for emergency medical assistance. Fill them out after breakfast." The shelter's dining room was already busy with women and children. Elena sat at an empty table, feeling awkward and alone. "Mind if I join you?" asked a young woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She carried a sleeping toddler on her hip. "I'm Destiny. This is my daughter, Zoe." "I'm Elena. Please sit." Destiny settled beside her. "You're the new girl with the quads, right?" Word travels fast here. Elena managed a small smile. "Yes, just found out a few days ago. My cousin had twins last year. Thought she'd lose her mind with just 2. Destiny stopped, looking embarrassed. "Sorry, that wasn't helpful." "It's okay. I'm still trying to process it myself." "Where's the father?" Destiny asked, then quickly added, "None of my business. Sorry." "He's in Boston. He doesn't know about the babies." "Well, he knows about 1 baby, but not 4. Elena pushed her food around on her plate. "He chose his rich family over us." Destiny nodded with understanding. "Men. My ex chose drugs and hitting me over his own daughter. That's why we're here." Dr. Jenkins's clinic was in a community health center downtown. The doctor was younger than Elena expected, with kind eyes and a direct manner. 4 babies means 4 times the risks, Dr. Jenkins explained during the examination. "Your body will be under tremendous stress." "What kind of risks?" Elena asked. "Premature labor is almost certain with quadruplets. High blood pressure, gestational diabetes, anemia. These are common complications. You'll need frequent monitoring." Elena tried to stay calm. "Will the babies be okay?" "With proper care, they have a good chance. But you need to understand, this won't be an easy pregnancy." Dr. Jenkins looked at Elena seriously. "Do you have support? Family nearby?" "Just my friend, Tanya, and the shelter." Dr. Jenkins wrote something in Elena's file. "I'm enrolling you in our high-risk pregnancy program. All your care will be covered. You'll see me weekly." When Elena returned to New Beginnings, Martha was waiting for her. "How did it go?" "Dr. Jenkins says I need lots of monitoring. The pregnancy will be difficult." Elena sat heavily on a chair. "I don't know how to do this, Martha." Martha sat across from her. "One day at a time. That's how everyone here survives." She pushed a notebook toward Elena. "Start a journal. Write down everything the doctor says, every question you have, every plan you make. Your brain is going to be foggy with pregnancy hormones and stress." That night, Elena tried calling James again. She'd blocked his number after the bus trip to Chicago, but unblocked it now. He should know about the babies, regardless of what happened between them. The call went straight to voicemail. Elena left a message. "James, it's Elena. There's something important you need to know about the baby. Please call me back." She tried again the next day, and the next. No response. After a week, she asked Destiny if she could use her phone to try. "He blocked you," Destiny said, showing Elena the message that appeared when they tried calling from her number. Elena felt a fresh wave of hurt. "I can't believe he would just cut me off completely." "Believe it," Destiny said flatly. "Men like that live in a different world. They do what's convenient for them." As January turned to February, Elena's pregnancy began showing more pronounced signs. Morning sickness lasted all day. She became dizzy when standing too long. Dr. Jenkins confirmed what she already suspected. The physical strain of carrying 4 babies was taking its toll. "Your blood pressure is higher than I'd like," Dr. Jenkins said at Elena's 4-week checkup. "And your blood sugar is concerning. I think we're looking at the beginning of gestational diabetes." Elena had been hoping to look for a job or resume some nursing classes online. "What does this mean for my plans?" "It means you need to slow down. Your only job right now is growing these babies. I'm recommending reduced activity. No work, limited standing or walking. Rest as much as possible." Martha helped Elena apply for additional assistance programs once the medical complications were documented. "The system isn't perfect," Martha explained, "but high-risk pregnancies with multiples qualify you for priority housing and extended benefits." By March, Elena had settled into shelter life. She attended mandatory parenting classes and workshops, taking careful notes about caring for multiple infants. Tanya visited on weekends, bringing nursing textbooks so Elena could study during her enforced rest. "I called my nursing advisor," Elena told Tanya during one visit. "She says I can restart the program after the babies are born. They'll hold my spot for a year." "That's great," Tanya said, arranging the textbooks on Elena's small desk. "You can keep learning theory even if you can't do clinical work now." Elena nodded, but her face showed doubt. "How will I go to school with 4 babies?" "One step at a time," Tanya echoed Martha's advice. "First, grow healthy babies. Then we'll figure out the rest." One evening, Destiny was helping Elena sort through donated baby clothes when she noticed something on her phone. "Do you want to see what he's doing?" Destiny asked hesitantly. "Who?" "The father, James. My cousin follows all those rich people accounts. The Carsons are pretty famous in Boston." Elena hesitated, then nodded. Destiny handed her the phone, open to a social media page. There was James, smiling broadly, his arm around Megan Taylor. The caption read, "Carson and Taylor families celebrate engagement at charity gala." Elena felt sick. "He's just moved on like I never existed." "I'm sorry," Destiny said. "I thought you'd want to know." As her pregnancy progressed into the 5th month, Elena's health worsened. Dr. Jenkins diagnosed her with preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure that threatened both her and the babies. "I'm putting you on bed rest," Dr. Jenkins announced firmly. "Limited bathroom trips, no stairs, no household activities." But how will I?" "This is non-negotiable, Elena. The risk of premature labor or other complications is too high." Martha reorganized Elena's room at the shelter, moving her to a first-floor space closer to the bathroom. The other residents took turns bringing her meals and keeping her company. "We take care of our own here," Martha told her. "You'd do the same for them." By week 28, Elena could barely walk to the bathroom without becoming exhausted. Her body felt foreign, stretched beyond its limits. But the ultrasound showed all 4 babies were still growing, their tiny hearts beating strongly. "You're doing amazing work," Dr. Jenkins encouraged during a home visit to the shelter. "Most quadruplet pregnancies don't make it this far." Tanya came more frequently now, helping Elena create detailed birth plans with Dr. Jenkins. They prepared for every possible scenario. "The NICU team will be ready," Dr. Jenkins assured them. "Our goal is to get to 32 weeks if possible." The shelter community rallied around Elena. Women she barely knew collected baby items, 4 of everything. They organized volunteers to help once the babies arrived. Martha secured a promise of larger housing through a family program. Elena reached exactly 32 weeks when she woke up one morning with a crushing headache and spots in her vision. "Something's wrong," she told Destiny, who was bringing her breakfast. Destiny took one look at Elena's swollen face and called for Martha. Within minutes, Martha was checking her blood pressure with the shelter's medical kit. 170 over 110, Martha read, her face grim. "We're calling an ambulance." Everything happened quickly after that. Paramedics rushing in, the wail of sirens, Dr. Jenkins meeting them at the hospital, medical terms flying over Elena's head as her vision blurred. Severe preeclampsia, risk of seizures, immediate delivery. Elena grabbed Dr. Jenkins's hand. "They're too small to be born yet." "They're in more danger if they stay inside," Dr. Jenkins said gently. "We need to do an emergency C-section. Now." As they wheeled Elena toward the operating room, she heard Dr. Jenkins giving orders. "Notify NICU we have 4 preemies coming. Estimated weight 3 to 4 pounds each. Have 4 incubators ready." The bright lights of the operating room blinded Elena. A nurse placed an oxygen mask over her face as the anesthesiologist explained the spinal block. Elena felt a moment of pure terror. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. Dr. Jenkins squeezed her hand. "You're not alone. We're all here with you." As the medication took effect, Elena felt herself floating away. Her last conscious thought was of 4 tiny heartbeats, about to face the world much sooner than nature intended. Elena woke slowly, her body heavy and her mouth dry. Beeping machines surrounded her hospital bed. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was or what had happened. Then it all rushed back. The headache, the ambulance, the emergency C-section. "My babies," she whispered, trying to sit up. Pain shot across her abdomen. A nurse appeared at her side. "Easy now. You're in recovery. The surgery went well." "My babies," Elena repeated more urgently. "Are they okay?" "All 4 girls are alive," the nurse said. "They're very small, but they're fighters. Dr. Jenkins is with them in the NICU. "I need to see them," Elena insisted. "You've just had major surgery. Give yourself a few hours to recover, then we'll take you to meet your daughters." Elena dozed off again, the pain medication making her thoughts foggy. When she woke next, Dr. Jenkins was checking her vital signs. "Welcome back," Dr. Jenkins smiled. "You have 4 beautiful daughters. They're small, but stable." "How small?" Elena asked. "Between 3 and 4 pounds each. Emma is the smallest at 3 pounds 2 ounces. Lily is 3 pounds 5 ounces. Sophie and Olivia are both just over 3 pounds 8 ounces. "You named them?" Elena was confused. Dr. Jenkins shook her head. "Those are the names you listed on your birth plan. The nurses put temporary bracelets on them with those names. You can change them if you want." Elena remembered the names she had chosen weeks ago. "No, those are their names." She tried to sit up again. "Please, I need to see them." 6 hours after surgery, a nurse helped Elena into a wheelchair. The pain from her incision made her gasp, but she was determined. They wheeled her to the neonatal intensive care unit, where she had to wash her hands thoroughly before entering. The NICU was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors. Incubators lined the walls, each containing a tiny baby connected to tubes and wires. The nurse wheeled Elena to a corner where 4 incubators were grouped together. "Here they are," the nurse said gently. "Your quadruplets." Elena couldn't speak. Each clear plastic box contained a tiny baby, smaller than any infant she had ever seen. Pink faces, eyes closed, thin arms with tiny fingers, tubes in their noses, wires on their chests, monitors tracking every breath and heartbeat. "They're so small," she finally whispered. "This is Emma," the nurse said, stopping at the first incubator. "She needed a little extra help breathing at first, but she's doing better now." Elena placed her hand on the plastic, wishing she could touch her daughter. "Hello, Emma." They moved to the next incubator. "This is Lily. She's the calmest of the 4. Next came Sophie, who the nurses said moved around more than her sisters, and finally Olivia, who had the strongest cry. "When can I hold them?" Elena asked. "Not quite yet," a new voice said. Elena turned to see an older nurse with gray hair and kind eyes. "I'm Diane, the head NICU nurse. Your girls need to stay in the incubators until they're a bit stronger, but you can touch them through these openings." Diane showed Elena how to place her hands through the round ports in the side of the incubator. Elena reached in carefully and touched Emma's tiny hand. To her surprise, the baby's fingers curled around her index finger. "She knows you're her mom," Diane said. Elena spent an hour with her daughters before the pain and exhaustion became too much. As they wheeled her back to her room, she asked, "When can I come back?" "Anytime you want," Diane told her. "They need you as much as they need the medical care." Over the next few days, Elena established a routine. She would spend most of her day in the NICU, dividing her time between all 4 babies. The nurses helped her create a schedule so each daughter got equal attention. You need to keep track of who you've spent time with, Diane advised. It's easy to lose track with quads. Elena started a notebook, recording every detail about each baby, their weight gains, feeding amounts, diaper changes, and the small milestones that might seem insignificant to others but meant everything to a mother of premature quadruplets. 1 week after their birth, Diane taught Elena how to do kangaroo care, holding a baby against her bare skin to help with bonding and development. Because the babies were still so fragile, she could only hold one at a time. "Who should I hold first?" Elena asked, overwhelmed by the choice. "Emma," Diane said without hesitation. "She's still the smallest and needs the most help." With Diane's assistance, Elena held Emma against her chest, skin to skin, a blanket covering them both. The feeling of her daughter's tiny heart beating against her was overwhelming. "She's so perfect," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, she is," Diane agreed, "and so are her sisters." "You're doing amazing work, Elena." By the end of the 2nd week, Elena had established a color-coding system with the hospital's help. Each baby had a different colored bracelet: pink for Emma, yellow for Lily, green for Sophie, and purple for Olivia. Their charts, blankets, and tiny hats matched these colors. "How do you tell them apart?" asked a young nurse who was new to the unit. "They look identical to most people," Elena explained, "but they're very different to me. Emma has a more serious face. Lily always looks calm. Sophie is always moving her hands, and Olivia has a tiny birthmark on her ear that you can only see in certain light." Tanya visited often, bringing handmade hats with matching colored ribbons sewn on them. Martha from New Beginnings came weekly, updating Elena on the housing search and helping with paperwork for assistance programs. "I found a possible apartment for you and the girls," Martha told her during one visit. 2 bedrooms, 1st floor, in a building with an elevator. It's through the Family First program." "When will we need it?" Elena asked, watching Sophie's monitor as the baby's oxygen levels dipped slightly and then returned to normal. "Dr. Jenkins thinks the babies might be ready to leave in about 2 more weeks if they continue gaining weight." Elena nodded, though the thought of caring for all 4 babies alone terrified her. One day between feeding times, Elena was using Diane's computer to check her email when a news alert caught her eye. It was a Boston Society page article about James and Megan's upcoming wedding. The couple smiled from the screen, standing in the Carson Mansion's grand ballroom, the same room where Elena had worked during holiday parties. The caption read, "Carson and Taylor families unite. Wedding of the year planned for June." Elena felt a fresh wave of hurt wash over her. While she sat in a hospital NICU with their premature daughters, James was planning his wedding to another woman. Diane found her crying quietly by the incubators a few minutes later. "What happened? Are the babies okay?" Elena wiped her tears. "The babies are fine. I just saw something online about their father. He's getting married to someone else. He doesn't even know they exist." Diane sat beside her. "Do you want him to know?" Elena looked at her 4 tiny daughters, each one with James's distinctive green eyes. "I tried to tell him I was pregnant. He blocked my number. He made his choice." "And you're making yours?" Diane said gently. "These girls have you, and sometimes one good parent is better than 2 bad ones." By the end of the 3rd week, all 4 babies were breathing without oxygen support. They had each gained several ounces and could maintain their body temperature for short periods outside the incubators. "They're doing remarkably well for quadruplets born at 32 weeks, Dr. Jenkins told Elena during rounds. "Their lung development is better than expected." Diane taught Elena how to bathe the tiny babies, supporting their heads and keeping them warm. She learned how to feed them using special preemie bottles with slow-flow nipples, how to burp them gently, how to change diapers that seemed too big for their tiny bodies. "You're going to be doing this 4 times in a row, multiple times a day," Diane reminded her. "Practice your system now while you have help." The other NICU parents and nurses were amazed at Elena's organization and calm. They didn't see her crying in the bathroom from exhaustion or the moments of pure fear when one of the baby's monitors alarmed in the night. 1 month after their birth, Dr. Jenkins called a meeting with Elena. "Your girls are ready to go home," she announced. "They've all reached 5 pounds, they're feeding well, and their breathing is stable. They still need special care, but they no longer need to be in the hospital." Elena felt both joy and terror. "All 4 at once?" Dr. Jenkins nodded. "All 4. The social worker has confirmed your housing is ready. The hospital has donated 4 car seats designed for preemies. We have a home care nurse scheduled to visit twice weekly for the first month." Diane helped Elena prepare for the big day. They packed donated baby clothes, specially formulated formula for premature babies, and medical supplies. The NICU staff threw a small going-home party with tiny cupcakes and a handmade card signed by everyone who had cared for the quadruplets. "We're going to miss them," Diane said, hugging Elena. "But this is what we hoped for." On a bright spring morning, Elena dressed her daughters in matching white outfits with their colored hats. Hospital staff helped load them into their car seats, carefully adjusting the straps for their small bodies. A hospital volunteer would drive them to their new apartment, where Tanya and friends from New Beginnings waited to help. As they prepared to leave the NICU, Elena's phone pinged with a notification. Tanya had sent her a link to a social media post. Elena clicked it without thinking and immediately wished she hadn't. It was a professional photo of James and Megan, tagged as Boston's wedding of the year. They stood on the sweeping staircase of the Carson mansion, surrounded by white flowers. The post had thousands of likes and comments congratulating the couple. Elena quickly closed the app and looked at her 4 beautiful daughters, strapped into their car seats and ready to face the world. "We don't need him," she told them softly. "We have each other. That's all that matters." The drive to Elena's new apartment was short, but her mind was racing. She pushed thoughts of James and his wedding away, focusing instead on the 4 tiny babies in their car seats. Home. They were going home. But what did that even mean when home was a place she had never seen before? The apartment building was old but clean, with a small elevator that smelled like cleaning products. Their new home was on the 2nd floor. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen, and a living area. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe and subsidized through Martha's housing program. Tanya was waiting at the door, her smile huge. "Welcome home, Supermom." Inside, Elena found a surprise. The empty apartment she had expected was filled with basic furniture: 4 cribs in 1 bedroom, a bed in another, a table with chairs, a worn but clean couch. Women from New Beginnings were arranging baby supplies in neat piles. "Martha organized this," Tanya explained. "Everyone donated something." Destiny appeared from the kitchen. "We set up everything. Diapers here, clothes there, bottles ready in the kitchen." Elena felt tears forming. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Just put those babies in their new cribs so we can all admire them," Martha said, entering with armfuls of groceries. That first night alone with the quadruplets was the hardest thing Elena had ever faced. The hospital routine had involved many nurses helping. Now it was just her. She had created a feeding schedule. Every 2 hours, starting with Emma, then Lily, then Sophie, then Olivia. But babies didn't understand schedules. At 2 in the morning, all 4 were crying at once. "Please," Elena begged, tears running down her face as she tried to warm bottles while rocking 2 car seats with her feet. "Please wait your turn." She hadn't slept more than 20 minutes at a stretch. Her C-section incision ached. Her breasts hurt from trying to pump milk for 4 hungry babies, and she was more alone than she had ever felt. A knock on the door startled her. It was Martha, still in her pajamas. "I could hear them from downstairs," she said. "The shelter keeps an ear on new mothers the first few nights." Elena broke down. "I can't do this. It's too much." Martha took 2 crying babies from her. "Yes, you can, but not alone. That's why we're here." Over the next few days, Martha helped Elena establish a military-precise routine. Feeding times were scheduled and recorded. Diapers were changed in assembly line fashion. Sleep was grabbed in short bursts whenever possible. "You need a system," Martha explained, showing Elena how to color-code everything from bottles to pacifiers to prevent mix-ups. "Your brain won't work right on no sleep." By the end of the first week, women from New Beginnings had created a volunteer schedule. Someone would help for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening, giving Elena time to shower, eat, or simply breathe. "We take care of our own," Destiny told her, expertly feeding 2 babies at once. "When my Zoe was born, I couldn't stop crying for 3 days. The shelter women sat with me in shifts." At the 2-week checkup, Dr. Jenkins was pleased with the baby's progress. They've each gained between 6 and 8 ounces. Their lungs sound clear and their reflexes are developing normally. She studied Elena's face. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," Elena said automatically. Dr. Jenkins gave her a knowing look. That's what all new mothers say, and it's rarely true. Especially mothers of multiples. Elena sighed. "I'm exhausted, scared, overwhelmed, but also proud. They're growing. We're surviving." "That's a victory," Dr. Jenkins agreed, "but you need more help than just volunteers." The next day, Martha called a meeting at Elena's apartment. 5 mothers from New Beginnings sat in the small living room while the babies napped. "We're creating a childcare cooperative," Martha announced. "Each of you has different schedules. Elena needs regular help, so we're going to set up a rotation." The plan was simple but effective. Each mother would watch other mothers' children at scheduled times, creating a support system that benefited everyone. Elena would have reliable childcare for specific periods, allowing her to eventually resume nursing studies or work. "I don't know how to thank you all," Elena said. "When your babies are older, you'll take someone else's shift," Martha replied. "That's how community works." By the end of the first month, Elena had settled into a new normal. It wasn't easy. Nothing about raising quadruplets alone could be, but it was becoming possible. The babies developed their own personalities, which became clearer each day. Emma was determined, often fighting to stay awake longer than her sisters. Lily was peaceful, rarely crying unless truly uncomfortable. Sophie was curious, her eyes tracking movements even at her young age. Olivia was sensitive, needing more cuddles and reassurance than the others. "They may look identical," Elena told Tanya during a weekend visit, "but they're completely different people." "With 4 different college funds to worry about," Tanya joked. Elena didn't laugh. College seemed impossible when simply buying enough diapers was a constant struggle. Noticing her expression, Tanya changed the subject. "Have you thought about going back to school? You were only a year away from your nursing degree." "How? Even with the childcare help, I can't afford tuition." "There are scholarships for single mothers, and online courses for some subjects." The idea took root. During the quiet hours of night feedings, Elena researched options. Her nursing program would hold her spot for a year after the birth. She could take some theory courses online while completing clinical requirements later. 3 months after bringing the babies home, Elena registered for one online nursing course. She studied during naps and late at night, determined not to give up her dream. Martha found her asleep one morning, face down in a textbook with a baby monitor beside her. "This isn't sustainable," Martha said when Elena woke. "You need income, not just more education debt." "I know," Elena admitted, "but what job can I do with 4 infants?" Martha smiled. "I might have something. The community clinic where Dr. Jenkins works needs administrative help. Part-time, flexible hours, and this is the key part, they're willing to let you bring the babies when necessary." The job interview was unlike any Elena had experienced. The clinic director, Dr. Powell, was a practical woman with gray hair and comfortable shoes. "Martha tells me you're a nursing student with quadruplets," she said, reviewing Elena's resume. "Normally those would be strikes against hiring someone, but we have unusual needs." The position was basic, answering phones, filing records, scheduling appointments, but it offered critical benefits: Flexible hours, health insurance for Elena and her daughters, and a foot in the door of the medical field. "We have a small room that used to be a storage closet," Dr. Powell said. "We can put in a playpen for days when your childcare falls through. But it's not ideal for 4 babies." "I understand," Elena said quickly. "The shelter mothers will still be my primary childcare. This would be just for emergencies." Elena started work the following week. It was exhausting to manage even part-time work with 4 infants, but the routine gave structure to her days. The clinic staff adored the quadruplets and often helped during slow periods. By the time the babies were 6 months old, Elena had completed 2 online courses and was working 20 hours weekly at the clinic. Her apartment was organized chaos. 4 bouncy seats in the living room, 4 high chairs crowded around the small table, toys and bottles everywhere despite her constant cleaning. A social worker visited monthly to check on their progress. "You're doing amazingly well," she told Elena during one visit. "Many parents struggle with 1 baby. You're managing 4 while working and studying." "I don't have a choice," Elena replied, automatically rocking a fussy Olivia while feeding Sophie. "Everyone has choices," the social worker said. "Some people would have given up. You didn't." As the babies approached their first birthday, Elena received news that changed everything again. The clinic's regular medical assistant was leaving and Dr. Powell wanted Elena to train for the position. "It's more responsibility and better pay," Dr. Powell explained. "We'll work around your schedule while you complete the training." This promotion meant Elena could finally afford a few luxuries: new clothes for the growing babies, occasionally ordered pizza instead of cooking, and even a small amount saved each month for emergencies. The girl's first birthday was celebrated in Elena's apartment with shelter friends, clinic staff, and Tanya, who brought handmade dresses for each baby. 4 small cakes sat on the table: pink for Emma, yellow for Lily, green for Sophie, and purple for Olivia, maintaining the color system that helped everyone tell them apart. "Make a wish," Tanya said as Elena helped the babies blow out their candles. Elena looked around the small apartment filled with people who had become her family, then at her 4 beautiful daughters, now sitting up, babbling, and beginning to show their unique personalities even more clearly. Emma reached for her cake with determination. Lily watched her sisters before touching her own. Sophie examined her cake from all angles. Olivia looked to Elena for permission before poking a finger into the frosting. "They're going to be okay," Martha said, standing beside Elena. "All 5 of you." That night, after everyone left and the babies were asleep in their cribs, Elena sat at her small desk. Her nursing textbooks were stacked neatly beside a framed photo of the quadruplets. Her work schedule for the next week was posted on the wall. A letter confirming her enrollment in the next semester's online courses sat beside her computer. It wasn't the life she had imagined for herself a year ago, when she was in love with James Carson and dreaming of a future together. It was harder, lonelier, and infinitely more exhausting. But looking at her sleeping daughters, each one with James's green eyes but their own developing spirits, Elena felt something she hadn't expected: pride. They had survived their first year against all odds, and they had done it without the Carson fortune. 3 years had passed since that first birthday celebration. Elena stood in the doorway of her daughter's bedroom, watching 4 identical little girls sleep peacefully in their beds. At 4 years old, Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia had outgrown their cribs and now had small beds arranged along the walls of their shared room. Each bed had bedding in their assigned color, a system Elena had maintained since their birth to help others tell them apart. The apartment was larger now, a 3-bedroom unit in the same subsidized building but with more space for growing children. Elena had graduated from nursing school 6 months earlier and now worked full-time at Chicago Children's Hospital in the pediatric unit. Her life had transformed through persistence and hard work. The alarm on her phone buzzed softly. 5 o'clock in the morning. Time to start the day. Elena had perfected her morning routine over the years. She showered and dressed for work before waking the girls, preparing breakfast while they took turns in the bathroom, then helping each one dress for preschool. "Emma, stop pushing," Elena said as she helped the girls brush their teeth. "Everyone gets the same amount of toothpaste." Emma, always the leader, tried to move ahead in line. "But I'm ready now." "We wait for our sisters," Elena reminded her firmly. "That's our family rule." Despite their identical appearance, same curly dark hair, same green eyes, same small build, their personalities were completely different. Emma was determined and often bossy. Lily remained the peacemaker, quiet and thoughtful. Sophie was endlessly curious, always asking questions. Olivia was creative, preferring drawing to almost any other activity. "Mommy, will Miss Patty let us paint today?" Olivia asked as Elena tied her shoes. "Today is Thursday, so yes, it's art day," Elena answered, knowing her daughter's preschool schedule by heart. "I want to do science experiments," Sophie said. "Ms. Patty promised." "You'll have science tomorrow," Elena assured her. The morning continued in organized chaos. Breakfast at the kitchen table, 4 lunch boxes to pack, 4 small backpacks to check. "Line up by colors," Elena called as they prepared to leave. The girls immediately formed their usual line. Emma with pink backpack first, Lily with yellow second, Sophie with green third, and Olivia with purple last. The preschool was only 2 blocks away, a community center program that offered reduced tuition for working parents. The teachers had initially struggled to tell the quadruplets apart, but Elena's color system and the girls' different personalities made it easier with time. "Good morning, Elena," called Ms. Patty as they arrived. "Hello, Carson girls." Elena had given the girls her last name, Martinez, on their birth certificates, but everyone called them the Carson girls because they looked so much alike. Elena never corrected them. It seemed easier than explaining. After dropping off the girls, Elena headed to work. The pediatric floor at Chicago Children's Hospital was busy as always, filled with sick children and worried parents. Elena moved between rooms with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs and administering medications. "Nurse Martinez, you have a call at the desk," another nurse called during her lunch break. It was Martha from New Beginnings. Though Elena no longer lived at the shelter, Martha remained an important part of her life. "Just checking in," Martha said. "How are those girls of yours?" "Growing too fast," Elena replied. "Emma lost her first tooth yesterday and carried it around like a trophy all day." They talked for a few minutes about the girls' latest achievements and Elena's work. Martha had become like a grandmother to the quadruplets, visiting regularly and remembering every milestone. "I'm proud of you," Martha said before hanging up. "Not many people could have done what you've done." That evening after dinner, while the girls colored at the kitchen table, Elena scrolled through her phone, checking social media. She rarely had time for it between work and raising 4 children, but she tried to keep up with friends from nursing school. A post from Tanya caught her eye. Tanya had moved back to Boston last year to launch her fashion line and occasionally shared Boston news. This post showed a grand building with holiday decorations. Carson Development's building lit up for the holidays. They're planning their 50th anniversary gala, supposedly the event of the year. Elena froze, her finger hovering over the screen. Carson Developments. The family business James had been so desperate to protect. The reason he had chosen Megan over her and their child, though he never knew there would be 4 children instead of 1. She clicked on the link in Tanya's post. The Carson Developments website announced their upcoming 50th anniversary celebration and Christmas gala, the same event where Elena had been thrown out into the snow exactly 4 years ago. The entire Boston business community will gather to celebrate Carson Development's legacy and future, the announcement read. CEO James Carson and his wife Megan will host the event at the historic Carson family mansion. Elena's heart raced. Before she could stop herself, she was typing James Carson's name into the search bar. News articles and business profiles appeared. James had successfully expanded the family empire. There were photos of him at business events, always with Megan beside him. They looked perfect together in their expensive clothes, smiling for cameras. One article mentioned that despite 4 years of marriage, the couple remained childless. The Society writer delicately hinted at rumored fertility issues that had become a topic of quiet conversation in Boston social circles. "Mommy, what are you looking at?" Sophie appeared at her elbow, always curious about everything. Elena quickly closed the app. "Just some old friends, sweetie. Are you finished coloring?" "Yes, I drew our family." Sophie held up her picture. 4 small figures with dark hair next to a taller figure. "That's Emma, Lily, me, and Olivia. And that's you." "It's beautiful," Elena said, hugging her daughter. "Why don't you go brush your teeth with your sisters?" "It's almost bedtime." After tucking all 4 girls into bed and reading them stories, Elena returned to her phone. She searched for more information about James and Megan Carson. There were rumors about their marriage in gossip columns, suggestions that the perfect couple might not be so perfect privately. The next day at work, Elena was distracted. During lunch, she sat with her friend Kelly, a nurse in the fertility clinic. "Have you ever treated really wealthy patients?" Elena asked casually. "Like famous people?" Kelly nodded. "Sometimes. We get patients from all over the country." "I was reading about this Boston couple, the Carsons, big real estate family. The article hinted they've been trying to have a baby without success." Kelly looked up sharply. "I can't discuss specific patients." "So they have been here," Elena said, noticing Kelly's reaction. "I didn't say that," Kelly replied quickly. Then she lowered her voice. "But yes, that Boston real estate couple has been to pretty much every fertility clinic in the country. 4 years of treatments without success. Very sad situation." 4 years. The exact time since Elena had been thrown out of the Carson mansion while pregnant with James's children. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the Carson gala, about James and Megan's childless marriage, about her 4 beautiful daughters who had never known their father or his family. The next morning, she called Martha. "I need your advice," Elena said when Martha answered. "It's about the girl's father." Martha was silent for a moment. "You've never wanted to discuss him before." "I saw something online. He's having a big family event next month. The same event where his mother threw me out 4 years ago." "And?" "I'm thinking of going back to Boston, of showing him his daughters." Another long silence. "Is this about justice or healing, Elena?" "Maybe both," Elena admitted. "The girls are starting to ask questions about why they don't have a daddy like their friends. And they deserve to know their family history, don't they? Even the messy parts." "They deserve the truth," Martha agreed. "But are you ready for what might happen? He could reject them again, or he could fight you for custody with all that Carson money behind him." Elena hadn't considered that possibility. "He doesn't strike me as someone who actually wants to raise children. He just wants the perfect image." "People change in 4 years," Martha reminded her. "Think about how much you've changed." After their call, Elena made a list of pros and cons about returning to Boston. Under cons, she wrote things like reopening old wounds and disrupting the girls' routine. Under pros, she wrote, girls deserve to know their father, and medical history for their records. That evening, she showed the girls a map of the United States. "This is where we live, in Chicago," she explained, pointing to Illinois. "And this is where Mommy used to live, in Boston." She pointed to Massachusetts. "That's far away," Lily observed. "Yes, it is. How would you girls feel about visiting Boston? They have lots of snow at Christmas time." "Will we see Santa there?" Emma asked excitedly. "Maybe," Elena smiled. "There might even be a Christmas party we could go to." The girls cheered at the idea of a party. They loved dressing up and had recently become obsessed with princesses and fancy dresses. Later that night, Elena video called Tanya in Boston. "I'm thinking of bringing the girls to Boston for Christmas," she said after they caught up. "For the Carson Gala." Tanya's eyes widened. Are you serious? After what they did to you? The girls deserve to know their father and their grandparents. Tanya leaned closer to the camera. What can I do to help? Could we stay with you and… Elena hesitated. Would you make dresses for the girls? Something that would make an impression. Tanya's face broke into a smile. I'll make them the most beautiful matching Christmas dresses Boston has ever seen. Red velvet with white trim? Perfect, Elena agreed. 4 identical dresses for 4 identical girls with their father's green eyes. The next day, Elena requested vacation time for the last 2 weeks of December. Her supervisor was surprised. Elena rarely took time off, but approved it immediately. That night, Elena practiced what she might say to James when they finally came face to face again. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, trying different approaches. Hello, James. Remember me? The nanny you got pregnant and abandoned? Meet your daughters, all 4 of them. No, that was too angry. James, I'd like you to meet Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia, your daughters. Better, but still not right. As she got ready for bed, her phone pinged with a message from Tanya. Just bought the red velvet fabric. This is going to be epic. Elena looked at the most recent photo of her daughters on her nightstand. 4 beautiful girls with identical smiles, arranged as always in their color order. In 2 months, those same little girls would walk into the Carson mansion and change their family forever. She picked up her phone and booked 4 plane tickets to Boston for December 22nd. Boston looked different in December. Snow covered the streets as their taxi drove from the airport to Tanya's apartment in Cambridge. The quadruplets pressed their faces against the windows, amazed by the Christmas decorations lighting up the city. Look, Mommy! So many lights! Olivia pointed excitedly. Is that where Santa lives? Sophie asked, seeing a large decorated building. No, that's just a hotel, Elena explained. But Boston has lots of beautiful Christmas trees and lights. 3 days before Christmas, the city buzzed with holiday energy. Elena felt both nervous and determined as familiar landmarks appeared. They crossed the Charles River, and she could see the Boston skyline where she had once dreamed of building a life with James. Are we almost there? Emma asked impatiently. Almost, Elena assured her. Aunt Tanya is waiting for us. Tanya's apartment was in a converted factory building with big windows and exposed brick walls. She was waiting outside when their taxi arrived, jumping up and down despite the cold. My babies! Tanya squealed, hugging each girl. You've gotten so big! The girls giggled, remembering Tanya from her visits to Chicago. They adored her colorful clothes and the little presents she always brought them. Come inside before you freeze, Tanya said, helping with their luggage. I've got hot chocolate waiting. Inside, Tanya's apartment was warm and cluttered with fabric, sketches, and sewing materials. She had cleared her spare bedroom for Elena and set up 4 small air mattresses in her living room for the girls. I know it's not fancy, Tanya apologized. It's perfect, Elena assured her. We're just grateful to have somewhere to stay. After the girls were settled with hot chocolate and cookies, Elena and Tanya spoke quietly in the kitchen. Are you really sure about this? Tanya asked. Confronting the Carsons is a big step. Elena nodded. The girls deserve to know where they come from, and I'm done hiding. Well, you're going to make quite an entrance, Tanya said with a smile. Come see the dresses. In Tanya's workspace, 4 identical red velvet dresses hung on a rack. They were simple but beautiful, with white collars and sashes around the waist. They're perfect, Elena breathed. The girls will look like Christmas angels. Angels with a message, Tanya said. I also got you something. She pulled out a garment bag and unzipped it to reveal an elegant green dress. You should wear their father's eye color. The next morning, Elena took the girls for a drive through Beacon Hill. She slowed down as they passed the Carson mansion, an imposing brick building with black shutters and a wreath on the front door. That's a big house, Lily observed. Yes, it is, Elena said quietly. Very big. Who lives there? Sophie asked, always curious. Some people I used to know, Elena answered. We might see them at the Christmas party. Back at Tanya's apartment, Elena spent the afternoon researching the Carson family online while the girls watched Christmas movies. She learned that Richard Carson had suffered a heart attack last year and had stepped back from daily operations of the company. James now ran most of the business, with several new international projects under development. Social media showed pictures of James at business functions, always looking perfect in expensive suits. Megan appeared beside him in society photos, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. There were no casual family photos, no candid moments, just carefully staged appearances. They look miserable, Tanya commented, glancing over Elena's shoulder at a photo of James and Megan at a charity event. Maybe they are, Elena said, but that doesn't change what they did. See, that evening, Elena received a text message from a number she hadn't used in years. Elena, it's Mike. Tanya said you're in town and wanted to meet up. Coffee tomorrow. Mike had been James's college roommate. He was the only person who had known about their relationship while it was happening. Elena hesitated before replying. Union Cafe at 10. Union Cafe was busy the next morning. Elena left the girls with Tanya and arrived early, sitting at a table in the back. Mike walked in 5 minutes late, looking much the same as she remembered, tall with sandy hair and glasses. Elena, he said, stopping at her table, it's really good to see you. Thanks for meeting me, she replied as he sat down. Tanya didn't explain much, just that you were visiting Boston and wanted to connect. He studied her face. You look great, different somehow. 4 years will do that, Elena said. How is everything with you? Good. I'm a partner in my law firm now, married last year. He showed her a picture of his wife on his phone. What about you? Tanya mentioned you finished nursing school? Yes, I work at Chicago Children's Hospital now. Elena took a deep breath. There's something else you should know. She pulled out her phone and showed Mike a photo of the quadruplets. His eyes widened. Are they all yours? Elena nodded. Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia. They're 4 years old. Mike looked from the phone to Elena's face. They look exactly like James, Elena finished for him. They're his daughters. Mike sat back in his chair, stunned. All 4 of them? But when did... I was pregnant when Victoria Carson threw me out. James knew about the pregnancy, but not that it was quadruplets. I tried to tell him after they were born, but he blocked my number. Jesus, Elena, I had no idea. Mike rubbed his face. I knew you two were together, but James told everyone you just disappeared. Is that what he says? That I disappeared? Elena felt a flash of anger. His mother had security escort me out in a snowstorm when she found out I was pregnant. James watched it happen and did nothing. Mike looked genuinely shocked. That's not the story he told. But it sounds like the Victoria Carson I've met. How are they? James and his family? Elena tried to sound casual. Mike hesitated. Complicated. Richard had a heart attack last year. He's better now, but not the same. James runs most of the business. He and Megan... He paused. It's not my place to gossip. Please, Mike. I need to know what I'm walking into. Mike lowered his voice. They present the perfect image publicly, but there are rumors. They've been trying to have a baby since they got married. No success. Some people say that's why their marriage is struggling. Elena absorbed this information silently. Why are you really here, Elena? Mike asked. After all this time? The Carson Developments Gala is happening on Christmas Eve, the same event where I was thrown out 4 years ago. Elena met his eyes directly. I want James to meet his daughters. Mike whistled softly. That's going to cause quite a scene. That's the idea. You need invitations, Mike said after a moment. Security will be tight. Can you help? Mike thought for a moment. My firm does business with Carson Developments. I can request additional invitations for potential clients. They won't question it. The next day, Mike delivered 5 invitations to Tanya's apartment. The girls were excited about the Christmas party, not understanding its significance. "What exactly is your plan?" Tanya asked that night after the girls were asleep. "Just walk in and announce they're his kids?" "Basically," Elena admitted. "I want to arrive during James's speech. I want everyone to see the girls at once, 4 identical proofs of what he's been hiding. And after the dramatic entrance, then what?" Elena looked away. "I don't know. I guess that depends on how he reacts." The day before the gala, Elena started having doubts. She stood in Tanya's kitchen, anxiety building. "Maybe this is selfish," she told Tanya. "Maybe I'm using the girls to get revenge." "Is that what this is about? Revenge?" Elena shook her head. "No, it's about the truth. The girls keep asking why they don't have a daddy. They deserve to know their family, even the parts that rejected us." "Then stick to the plan," Tanya said firmly. On December 24th, the day of the gala, Elena helped the girls try on their red velvet dresses for a final fitting. They twirled around Tanya's living room, delighted with how the skirts flared out. "We look like princesses," Emma declared. "The prettiest princesses ever," Tanya agreed, adjusting a sash here, a collar there. Elena styled their dark curly hair identically, pulling it back with matching red headbands. Standing in a row, the resemblance between the 4 girls was striking, and their similarity to James was undeniable. Those distinctive Carson green eyes stared back from 4 identical faces. Elena put on her own green dress, elegant but simple, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. She applied light makeup and wore her hair up, looking very different from the young nanny who had once worked in the Carson mansion. "You look beautiful, Mommy," Olivia said when Elena emerged from the bathroom. "Thank you, sweetheart. Are you girls ready for the party?" They nodded eagerly, lining up in their usual order. Emma first, Lily second, Sophie third, Olivia last. The drive to Beacon Hill was tense. Elena kept checking her watch, timing their arrival to coincide with the middle of the event, when James would likely be giving his anniversary speech. "Remember, girls, there will be many people at this party. Stay together and hold hands," Elena instructed as they parked near the mansion. "Is it a fancy party?" Sophie asked. "Very fancy, but you'll be the most beautiful girls there," Elena assured them. As they walked toward the Carson mansion, snow began falling lightly. Elena held Emma's hand, who held Lily's hand, who held Sophie's hand, who held Olivia's hand, a chain of identical little girls in red velvet dresses. At the entrance, a security guard checked their invitations. He looked at Elena, then at the 4 identical girls, confusion crossing his face. "Names?" he asked. "Elena Martinez and daughters," she replied, her heart pounding. The guard looked at his list, then back at the girls, clearly trying to process the sight of quadruplets. He spoke into his radio. "Sir, there's an Elena Martinez here with 4 little girls who look exactly like Mr. James." The security guard's radio crackled with a response, but before anyone could stop them, Elena guided her daughters through the entrance. The grand foyer of the Carson mansion was just as she remembered. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, fresh flowers on antique tables. Christmas decorations had transformed the space with garlands, lights, and a massive tree reaching toward the high ceiling. "It's so pretty," Lily whispered, her eyes wide. Elena could hear voices coming from the main ballroom. A man's voice, James's voice, echoed through speakers as he addressed the crowd. "For 50 years, Carson Developments has built not just buildings but relationships," James was saying. "My father's vision." Elena took a deep breath and squeezed Emma's hand. "Remember, girls, stay together. Hold hands." They walked toward the ballroom, the security guard trailing behind them, unsure what to do. The massive double doors stood open, revealing hundreds of guests in formal attire holding champagne glasses. At the far end of the room, James stood on a small stage, handsome in a black tuxedo, gesturing as he spoke about his family's legacy. Elena paused at the entrance, her heart pounding. This was the moment. She could still turn around, take her daughters home to Chicago, continue their life without disruption. Emma looked up at her. "Mommy, why are you stopping?" That simple question decided everything. Elena straightened her shoulders and stepped forward. "Let's go, girls." They entered the ballroom as a unit, Elena in her green dress, followed by 4 identical little girls in red velvet holding hands in a chain. At first, no one noticed. Then heads began to turn. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A path cleared through the crowd as people stepped back, staring at the quadruplets. James continued speaking, unaware of the disturbance at the back of the room. "As we move forward into the next 50 years, Carson developments will continue to—" He stopped suddenly as the crowd's silence registered. His eyes followed their gaze to the back of the room, where Elena stood with 4 little girls who had his green eyes, his chin, his features. Victoria Carson, standing near the stage with a champagne glass, was the first to react. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the silent room. "Elena?" James's voice came through the microphone, barely a whisper. The girls looked around curiously, unaware of the drama they had walked into. Sophie pointed at the Christmas tree. "Look, Mommy, it has little trains on it." James stepped away from the podium, his face pale. "What is this?" he asked, his voice now off microphone but audible in the silent room. Before Elena could answer, there was movement near the stage. Richard Carson, older than Elena remembered and walking with a cane, pushed past his son. Despite his obvious difficulty, he made his way across the ballroom toward Elena and the girls. The crowd parted for him, watching in stunned silence. Richard stopped in front of the quadruplets, his face showing shock and something else. Recognition. With effort, he lowered himself to one knee, wincing slightly. "Hello," he said softly to the girls. "What are your names?" Emma, always the leader, spoke first. "I'm Emma. These are my sisters Lily, Sophie, and Olivia. We're quadruplets. That means we were born at the same time." Richard's eyes filled with tears. He looked from one identical face to another, then up at Elena. Without standing, he turned toward the still silent crowd and said in a voice that carried across the room, "I've been waiting to meet my grandchildren." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Megan Taylor Carson, elegant in a silver gown, pushed through the crowd to stand beside her husband, who hadn't moved from the stage. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "Who are these children?" "I think that's rather obvious," Richard said, slowly standing with a hand on Sophie's shoulder for support. "They're Carsons. My granddaughters." Megan's face hardened. "This is absurd. This woman worked for us briefly as a nanny. Now she's crashing our event for attention or money." "Money?" Elena spoke for the first time, her voice steady. "I've raised these girls alone for 4 years without a penny from the Carson family. I'm not here for money." "Then why create this spectacle?" Megan snapped. Richard held up a hand, silencing her. "We will continue this discussion privately." He turned to a security guard. "Clear the library. Family meeting. Now." The security team began discreetly directing guests back to their drinks and food. Richard gestured for Elena and the girls to follow him. James finally moved from the stage, walking as if in a daze. "Tanya," Elena called, spotting her friend near the entrance. "Can you watch the girls for a few minutes?" "No," Richard said firmly. "The children come too. They're family." They walked through the mansion to Richard's wood-paneled library. The quadruplets looked around with interest, pointing at Christmas decorations and whispering to each other. "Is this where Santa comes?" Olivia asked, noticing the large fireplace. "Not quite, sweetheart," Elena replied, trying to stay calm. Once inside the library, Richard closed the door. Present were Elena and the girls, Richard, James, Victoria, and Megan. The tension in the room was palpable. "Sit down, all of you," Richard commanded, lowering himself carefully into a leather chair behind his desk. Elena guided her daughters to a sofa, where they sat in their usual order, looking around with curiosity. Victoria stood by the fireplace, her face rigid. James remained near the door as if planning an escape. Megan positioned herself beside Richard's desk, arms crossed. "Elena," Richard said, his voice calmer now, "I believe you have some explaining to do." Elena reached into her small purse and removed several folded papers. "I have their birth certificates and medical records confirming their birth date, exactly 32 weeks after I left this house." She placed the papers on Richard's desk. "Left?" Richard questioned, glancing at his son. "James told us you quit without notice." "I was thrown out," Elena said, "by security, on Victoria's orders, after she accused me of getting pregnant to trap James for Carson money." Richard turned to his wife. "Victoria?" Victoria looked away. She was inappropriate with James. "I did what any mother would do. She was pregnant with my grandchildren, and you threw her out into the snow?" Richard's voice rose slightly. "I didn't know they were quadruplets," Victoria said defensively. "Would it have mattered?" Elena asked. "You didn't want me pregnant with even one of James's children." Richard examined the birth certificates, his hands slightly shaking. "Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia Carson?" "Martinez," Elena corrected. "Their last name is Martinez." Richard looked at the 4 little girls sitting quietly on the sofa, then at his son. "James, do you have anything to say for yourself?" James finally stepped forward, his face ashen. "I didn't know there were 4 of them. Elena told me she was pregnant, but then she disappeared." "Disappeared?" Elena's voice shook with anger. "Your mother had me dragged out by security. You stood on the stairs and watched it happen." James looked down. "I was a coward. I should have stopped it." "Yes, you should have," Richard agreed sharply. "These are your children, James. Any fool can see that." Megan made a dismissive sound. "We don't know that. She could have found children who look similar. It's all a ploy for money." "A ploy?" Elena stood up, anger flaring. "I carried these 4 babies alone. I gave birth to them alone. I raised them alone. I worked and studied and built a life for us without any help from the Carson fortune." "DNA testing can confirm paternity," Richard said practically. "Look at them, Father," James said quietly. "They have my eyes, my face. They're mine." Richard pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos. He found one and handed the phone to James. "This is you at age 4. Tell me those aren't your daughters." James looked at the childhood photo, then at the 4 girls on the sofa. The resemblance was undeniable. "Why now?" he asked Elena. "After 4 years, why come back?" "Because they're asking about their father," Elena answered honestly. "Because they deserve to know where they come from, even if their father didn't want them." "It wasn't that I didn't want," James began. "You chose your family business and Megan over us," Elena cut him off. "You made your choice very clear." "I didn't even know there were 4 babies," James repeated. "Because you blocked my number," Elena reminded him. "I tried to tell you." "Multiple times." Victoria suddenly stepped forward. "I told him to block you after I found out you were pregnant." "Victoria!" Richard's voice was sharp. "I was protecting our family," Victoria insisted. "This girl was nobody. The Taylors were important to our business." "I knew she was pregnant," Megan said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "What did you say?" James asked. Megan's face flushed. "I overheard you 2 talking in the library before the gala." "She told you she was pregnant," I told Victoria. "You knew?" James stared at his wife. "You knew Elena was pregnant with my child, and you let my mother throw her out?" "We were engaged," Megan said defensively. "The merger between our families had been planned for years. I wasn't going to let some nanny ruin that. The room fell silent. The girls, sensing the tension, moved closer to Elena. "Mommy," Emma whispered loudly, "who are these people?" Before Elena could answer, Richard spoke. "We're your family, little one. I'm your grandfather." "I have a grandpa?" Emma looked at Elena for confirmation. Elena nodded slowly. "Yes. This is your grandfather, Richard Carson." "And I'm your father," James said, his voice breaking slightly. The girls looked at James with open curiosity. "You're our daddy?" Sophie asked, always the one with questions. "Where have you been?" James had no answer. Richard stood up slowly, leaning on his cane. "This has been quite enough for one evening." He turned to Victoria and Megan. "You two have some serious explaining to do, but not now." He walked to the sofa and looked at each little girl in turn. "Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia. I've missed 4 years of your lives. I don't intend to miss any more." He turned to Elena. "These children are Carsons, regardless of the last name on their birth certificates. They will be acknowledged and provided for." "I don't want your money," Elena said firmly. "This isn't about you," Richard replied. "This is about my granddaughters having the opportunities they deserve." He turned to James. "As for you, you have 4 daughters who need to know their father. I suggest you start making up for lost time." Richard opened the library door. "Now I believe we have guests waiting, and I have 4 granddaughters to introduce to the world." The girls jumped up excitedly, ready for more of the party. Elena hesitated. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Richard said. "These girls are Carsons." It's time everyone knew it. As they prepared to return to the ballroom, James approached Elena. "Can we talk?" "Privately?" "Not now," Elena said. "The girls come first." In the ballroom, guests had continued the party, though the whispers and glances made it clear the dramatic scene remained the main topic of conversation. When Richard entered with Elena and the quadruplets, the room quieted again. Richard walked to the stage, moving slowly but with purpose. He took the microphone, the 4 identical girls standing in front of him, Elena slightly behind. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice strong despite his age, "allow me to introduce the newest members of the Carson family, my granddaughters, Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Olivia." The crowd broke into uncertain applause. Victoria stood at the back of the room, her face unreadable. Megan had disappeared entirely. James stood to the side, watching his daughters with an expression of wonder and regret. As the evening ended and guests began to leave, Richard took Elena aside. "5 years ago, we made a terrible mistake," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "Please give us the chance to know them." Elena looked at her daughters, now happily accepting cookies from waiters who seemed charmed by the identical little girls in red dresses. "I need to think about what's best for them," she said. "This isn't about the past. It's about their future." Richard nodded. "All I ask is a chance to be their grandfather. They deserve that much, don't they?" Elena watched as Emma approached James hesitantly, asking him something about the big Christmas tree. James knelt down to her level, answering with a gentle smile that reminded Elena of the man she had once loved. "I'll think about it," she told Richard, unsure what the future would hold for her daughters and the family that had once rejected them. The gala ended with Elena taking her tired daughters back to Tanya's apartment. The girls fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the excitement, but Elena stayed awake most of the night, thinking about Richard Carson's words and James's face when he first saw his daughters. The next morning, Elena's phone rang early. It was Richard. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said. "I'd like to invite you and my granddaughters for lunch today." "Just family. No pressure." Elena hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea so soon." "Please," Richard said. "We've lost 4 years. I don't want to waste another day." After talking with Tanya, Elena agreed to a short visit at a neutral location. They met at a family restaurant near the Boston Common, away from the Carson mansion. Richard arrived first, then James. Victoria and Megan were notably absent. "Where's your wife?" Elena asked James as the girls colored on children's menus. "We had a long conversation last night," James said quietly. "She's staying at a hotel for now." Richard smiled at his granddaughters. "Have you girls ever been sledding? There's a wonderful hill at the Boston Common." "What's sledding?" Sophie asked, always curious. "Going down a snowy hill on a special board," Richard explained. "It's very fun. Can we try it, Mommy?" Lily asked. Elena nodded. "After lunch, if you eat all your vegetables." The meal was awkward but peaceful. The girls, unaware of the complicated history, chattered happily and asked Richard and James endless questions. After lunch, they walked to the common where Richard had arranged for sleds to be waiting. "I can't go down the hill myself," he told the girls, tapping his cane, "but your father can take you." James looked at Elena, silently asking permission. She nodded slightly. One by one, James took each girl down the hill on a sled, their delighted screams filling the cold air. Elena watched from a bench beside Richard. "They're remarkable children," Richard said. "You've done an incredible job raising them." "I had help," Elena replied. "Not from the Carsons, but from people who cared." "I understand your anger," Richard said. "But please don't punish the girls for our mistakes. They deserve to know their family." Elena watched as James helped Olivia, the most cautious of the four, onto a sled. "I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm trying to protect them." That first visit established a pattern. Elena extended her stay in Boston by another week, allowing short, supervised visits with Richard and James. The girls quickly became comfortable with their grandfather, who spoiled them with small gifts and stories. James was more complicated. He tried hard, bringing books and toys, remembering each girl's favorite color, but his interactions were awkward, as if he was afraid to make a mistake. One afternoon at a children's museum, James approached Elena while the girls explored an exhibit with Richard. "I've started seeing a therapist," he said suddenly, "twice a week." "That's good for you," Elena replied, unsure why he was telling her. "I need to understand why I let my mother control my life," he continued. "Why I stood on those stairs and watched security take you away. Why I was such a coward." Elena looked away. "It's a little late for self-discovery, James. I know, but I want to be better for them." He nodded toward the girls. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to be a real father to my daughters." Before returning to Chicago, Elena met with Richard in his office. He had official-looking papers spread across his desk. "I've established educational trusts for each of the girls," he explained. "They'll be able to attend any college they choose. There's also money set aside for their health care, extracurricular activities, anything they might need." "I've managed without Carson money for 4 years," Elena said. "This isn't about you or me," Richard replied, echoing his words from the gala night. "This is about giving 4 bright little girls every opportunity in life." Elena reluctantly agreed to the trusts, on the condition that she would maintain full custody and decision-making power. "I have another proposition," Richard said. "Boston Children's Hospital is looking for a pediatric nurse with your exact qualifications. I made a call. You're offering me a job? The hospital is offering you a job. I just made them aware of your resume. You'd be perfect for their new family support program." Elena returned to Chicago with a lot to think about. The girls missed their new grandfather and asked about their father daily. Her boss at Chicago Children's Hospital understood when Elena explained the situation. "Family is important," he told her, "and Boston Children's is an excellent hospital. It would be a good move for your career." Dr. Jenkins supported her as well. "Those girls deserve to know their father and extended family, and you deserve a support system." Over the next month, Elena and James established a routine of video calls with the girls. James sent packages with books and toys, always carefully chosen for each daughter's interests. Richard called Elena regularly, updating her on family matters. One of those updates was unexpected. Megan filed for divorce, Richard told her. She's moving to Europe. I'm sorry, Elena said automatically. Don't be. The marriage was never happy. James married her for the business connection, and she married him for the Carson name. Neither got what they really wanted. 2 months after the gala, Elena made her decision. She accepted the position at Boston Children's Hospital and began planning their move. Richard helped her find a comfortable 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood, close enough for regular visits but far enough to maintain her independence. Moving day brought an unexpected mix of helpers. Tanya organized everything, directing movers with expert precision. Richard arrived with toys for the girls' new bedrooms. James came too, helping to assemble furniture without being asked. The most surprising visitor was Victoria Carson. She arrived alone, standing uncertainly at the front door with a large box. "May I come in?" she asked Elena. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Victoria set the box down in the living room. "These are some of James's childhood books. I thought the girls might like them." She stood awkwardly, watching as Olivia approached the box and peeked inside. "Look, books," Olivia said excitedly. "Thank you, lady." "I'm your grandmother," Victoria said quietly. Olivia looked at Elena for confirmation. When Elena nodded, Olivia smiled. "Thank you, Grandma." Victoria's usually rigid face softened. "You're welcome, Olivia." As the weeks passed, the Carson family became more integrated into the girls' lives. James took his fatherhood responsibilities seriously, attending doctor appointments and school meetings. He spent one-on-one time with each daughter, learning their individual personalities. Richard visited often, bringing small gifts and taking genuine interest in the girls' activities. Even Victoria made efforts, inviting Olivia to draw with her one afternoon and seeming surprised to discover her granddaughter's artistic talent. Elena maintained professional boundaries with James, focusing on their co-parenting relationship. They created a formal agreement with help from family counselors, establishing visitation schedules and shared responsibilities. "I don't expect you to ever forgive me," James told her after one such meeting. "But I want you to know I'm grateful for the second chance with our daughters." By the time December arrived again, life had found a new rhythm. The girls were enrolled in a good school. Elena enjoyed her work at Boston Children's Hospital. The Carson family had been transformed by the presence of 4 identical little girls with boundless energy. The annual Carson Christmas Gala was very different that year. Instead of hundreds of business associates, only family and close friends were invited. The girls helped decorate the mansion, hanging ornaments they had made themselves on a tree in the main hall. "Remember when we first came here?" Sophie asked her sisters as they placed handmade decorations on the lower branches. "We didn't know Grandpa and Daddy yet." "Now we have a big family," Emma said matter-of-factly. The evening of the family celebration, the Quadruplets surprised everyone with a song they had practiced at school. They stood in front of the Christmas tree, still in their usual order, wearing matching green dresses that matched their eyes. As they sang Jingle Bells with enthusiastic, if not always accurate notes, Elena looked around the room. Richard watched his granddaughters with undisguised joy. Victoria, still reserved but softer now, smiled slightly. James stood beside his father, his face showing the pride he had earned the right to feel. After the girls finished their song to applause, Richard raised his glass. "To family, the one we make, the one we find, and the one we build together." Later, while the girls helped Victoria arrange Christmas cookies on a plate for Santa, Elena stepped outside onto the terrace for a moment of quiet. The same terrace where she and James had shared their first kiss years ago. James followed her outside, keeping a respectful distance. "The girls are so excited about Christmas," he said. "They've been telling me exactly what they want Santa to bring." Elena smiled. "They've already written 3 lists each." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching snow fall gently in the garden. "Thank you," James said finally. "For what?" "For giving me the chance to know them, for bringing them back to us, for being strong when I was weak." He turned to face her. "I'm not asking for anything more than to be their father. But I want you to know that I'm trying to become someone worthy of being in their lives." Inside, they could hear the girls laughing with their grandfather. 4 unique voices that had entered the world together, spent their first years with only their mother, and now had found their extended family. "Merry Christmas, James," Elena said simply, turning to go back inside where her daughters waited. As midnight approached, the Carson mansion felt different than it had on that snowy night 4 years ago. The walls that had once witnessed Elena's heartbreak now echoed with children's laughter. The family that had once rejected her had been transformed by the 4 little girls with James's green eyes and Elena's determined spirit. Not every wound was healed. Not every mistake was forgotten. But as Elena watched her daughters hang stockings by the fireplace, she knew that sometimes family forms in unexpected ways. And sometimes the hardest journey leads exactly where you need to be. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.